Alright, so first of all, huge spoiler warning for the entire game. I will be covering the entire game up to the final boss. There's no post-game stuff, so if you've gotten to the end of the game, you're good. But I will be talking about the entirety of the game up to the final boss. Spoiler warning. Play this game for yourself, it's amazing. Also, I wrote the script like, I don't know, what's October? I wrote this script like 2 or 3 months ago. So I think everything did stay intact through the updates, but if something didn't, I'll be pointing it out later. So, watch to the end to make sure this run is still possible. I'm sorry. Death's Door came out fairly recently, and it's garnered quite a bit of a following already. Thankfully, this game is incredible and definitely deserves all the attention it's gathered. If you don't know, and if you don't, you should definitely go play the game. Death's Door is an isometric action-adventure game by Acid Nerve, the same developers as Titan Souls. I heard it described as Zelda-like Souls-like, which is honestly pretty apt. Sword combat with unlockable spells, exploration, puzzles, dungeons, and bosses. This isn't a review, but you should definitely play the game. Easy 10 out of 10 and my game of the year so far. Now that the intro is out of the way, let's get to the crux of this video. Beating the game without rolling. Can you beat Death's Door without rolling? Before you get your hopes up, the answer is no. You cannot beat Death's Door without rolling. How can I be so sure? Well, the first area and boss are done really easily, and not much harder than a standard run. The demonic forest spirit can easily be avoided without rolling, and the grove itself is hardly a threat. Then you get your accomplishment stolen by a bigger crow and you follow him into the graveyard. Getting through the graveyard can be annoying, especially with the grunts, but they're passable. Grunts are all over this game, so get used to how quickly they attack. A strong attack will stun both grunts and archer ghouls, so you'll be using them a lot. After passing some enemies, you come across the first non-crow NPC in the game, Steadhone. Steadhone is centuries old and wants nothing more than to die, as he has been cursed with immortality. He sees you and assumes you've come to kill him, and won't move until you attack him. You give him a good thwack, no problem so far, nothing happens, and he asks you to hit him harder. A charged attack still does nothing to him. Finally, he suggests a run-up. This is the roadblock. You cannot pass here without rolling. The run's over. Well, it was fun while it lasted, but we're not done. We have one roll on the counter, we'll ignore my miss, and we're past our first impasse. The next hard part is an enemy gauntlet. I've lost almost all of my no-hit attempts to this single enemy surge. We do have plenty of health to make it through here though. Again, if you're having trouble, strong attacks will stun most kinds of enemies, barring the rolling ghouls. Hey wait, those guys are cheaters, this is a no-roll run. Also remember that reflected projectiles will do double the damage of the attack that reflected them, and fully charged strong attacks will kill a mage in one hit. Next up is the Guardian of the Door. While it may look formidable at first glance, it's not too much trouble. It is giant, but it has the speed to match. It's slow and super easy to read. Simply hit its hand 3 times. A full combo, back off, rinse and repeat. Just remember to back off as soon as it starts to attack. Try to keep full mana for when it jumps to the top of the arena. You can't approach it while it's shooting the laser, so use your arrows here, just before it starts firing. You can run in circles to easily dodge the laser. Remember to pay more mind when it's launching bombs too. If you see the reticle appear beneath you, you have plenty of time to make it out of the way, but don't get too greedy. You finally reach the crow that smacked you on the head earlier and you confront him. Learning his plight, you agree to help, no matter how ruefully. It is now your job to collect 3 giant souls in order to open the door to retrieve your assigned soul, as well as the Grey Crow's. First the soul of a witch who is trying to cheat death, then an unrighteous tyrant, and finally a horrible beast atop a snowy mountain. So it just started raining, and I live in an apartment with tin roofed, carports, so if you can hear that, I greatly apologize. The estate of the Urnwitch is nothing that can't be handled with a little determination, but you're going to need a lot of that throughout this run if you decide to attempt it. After lighting 2 torches and talking to Pothead, you have a choice to make. You can collect the daggers now, or come back for them later. The daggers are incredibly important to this run. They're fast and let you escape fast enough for most enemies that rolling becomes unnecessary, and they're even required to beat Betty. The only problem is the mini-boss standing in our way. This enemy is incredibly difficult if you don't know what you're doing, even casually. It's known as a noob killer through the community. I'm gonna call this enemy Smo, because he looks like Smo, and it's either that or Thick Knight. First and foremost, get behind its thigh, either one, and circle it away from the thigh every time it attacks. All of its combos are 3 attacks long, and in between each combo is a safe opportunity to attack. You then go through a small, relatively easy gauntlet of enemies, and can collect the daggers. You can also just do the head skip, but that's cheating. Plus there's a Smo that's required later on, and it's at the end of the Gauntlet of Avarice, so it's worth getting the practice here. Now that you have the daggers, another movement option is opened, and it's the only reason this run is even possible beyond the watchtowers, as it's the only way you can avoid Betty's roll attacks. It's known as the dagger dash or dagger slide and is surprisingly easy to perform. All you do is a strong attack, and while you're moving at max speed, pause and re-equip the dagger. It takes a few tries to get the feel for the timing, but it's surprisingly easy. Assuming it's not patched out in the future, I suppose. Inside the mansion, there are 3 gauntlets of note. There are 4 crow souls here, but one of them is only protected by a few grunts. The other 3 all involve a Grimace Knight, 2 of them with infinitely spawning adds. The single Grimace Knight is no trouble, but the respawning grunts and mages are annoying. The mages are best to ignore, but the grunts have to be killed. They're far too fast to dodge. Simply kill both of them as close together as possible, strong attacks have good range, and then get a few hits on the Grimace Knight. After all the gauntlets so far, the first gauntlet of Avarice is no trouble, though the enemies with the Grimace Knight don't respawn this time. The Inner Furnace is by far the hardest area so far, but it's hardly a glimpse of what's to come, so keep that in mind if you make it through with no trouble. Doubly so if you have a hard time with this. Keep at it, I believe in you. If I can do it, I'm sure you can too. The hardest part of this area is dodging the poison shooters while waiting for the pistons, but it can be done. It's best to just run past as many enemies as you can, just be ready to dodge projectiles. And during the segment where you have to light furnaces on the conveyor, missing twice means a forced death as you can't go back without rolling. Time to fight Grandma, but at this point her death is warranted. Her mouth is so foul. While this isn't the easiest fight in the game, it's definitely not the hardest. All of her Why can't I say that? This is like my third take. All of her attacks can be avoided 100% of the time. It can be said for all bosses, but it's especially true with the Iron Witch. None of her attacks are random, at least as far as I can tell. The purple jars are easily dodged if you just zigzag a little, though she will throw them in front of you, so watch out for that. The green jars can be used to deal a ton of damage if you manage to charge attack them back at her. When she gets in her pot, attack while she's getting in, but back away before she jumps. You can outpace her jumping, but not by much. During her spin, the projectiles can be knocked back, or you can just circle her and attack her. That's really all there is to this fight, just be careful of the projectiles she starts shooting when she's on low health. Making our way to the forest is no trouble. Not even going through it offers much of a challenge. Getting the horn and getting into the mushroom dungeon is nothing compared to the inner furnace. Just watch out for the grunts and reflect projectiles back at the fire plants. Inside the dungeon is a different story though, especially with the gauntlets around the crow souls, with one in particular. In this area, brutes, the shielded hammer wielders, are introduced. These guys suck. They're fast and have a huge range. If you're too far away, they'll throw bombs at you. The particular gauntlet I'm talking about has one particular wave that's incredibly difficult. If you can conquer the final wave in the room with the crow soul on the platform in the middle of the water, you can handle the rest of the run, let alone the rest of the dungeon. The first phases are easy, just use normal strategies and use the mage's projectiles on the brute, using range as much as possible. Make sure you have full mana going into the final phase though, this is very important. Group the grunts together, preferably in a line, and throw fireballs through all of them. 2 fireballs will break their shields, and from there you can get a little more damage with the other 2. If you have the hammer, you can get chip damage with a strong attack, as the lightning has good range, but this is slow and dangerous. It's faster, but much harder, to quickly strike at the edge of the dagger's range and quickly back away after the second hammer strike with the shockwave. Watch out though, the range is a lot bigger than it seems. The second Gauntlet of Avarice is more of the same enemies, and after the Mushroom Dungeon comes the Flooded Fortress. The fortress is pretty easy, at least compared to the dungeon. The only thing the fortress introduces is the boomers, the boomerang throwers, and they're really easy to take care of. Just get up close to them on the opposite side of the boomerang if they've thrown it, and wail on them. They always jump away, so you don't need to worry about being crushed. There are several gauntlets here, but none of them are particularly difficult. There are also fast archers, and they're incredibly annoying, but your bow shots shoot far faster than theirs, so you shouldn't need to worry too much. At the end of the Flooded Fortress, you face the next boss of the game, the Frog King. This absolute unit of a frog is arguably the easiest boss in the game, but is quite a bit longer than the Demonic Forest Spirit, so emphasis on arguable. He just jumps around, you smack him 3 times, then he gets big. You smack him a few more times, simply walking around while he's shooting exploding orbs, and you win. Really nothing to it, even compared to a casual playthrough. After casually meandering through the stranded sailor, a giant imposing castle looms ahead. This is Castle Lockstone, the imminent precursor to the hardest area in the game. There are only a few things worth noting here, but they are very important. First of all, the laser puzzles. None of them are too fast to solve. In fact, most of them are pretty easy. The hardest is probably the laser that follows you, but even then it's hardly an issue. Next, the Golden Brute. In order to get one of the Crow Souls, one of the gauntlets that must be conquered holds a few waves, one of which contains a Golden Brute matched with a fast archer. The fast archer can be taken care of normally, and the golden brute is the same as the smaller variant, but it's incredibly annoying and difficult if you aren't extremely careful. Finally, a new kind of enemy shows up, the dodgers. The dodgers are imposing at first, as they're very fast, but they will always swing, flip their halberd if you're close enough, swing again, and then run away if you're too close. After that second swing, get in and attack them a few times before running back. Rinse and repeat, and the dodgers will go down quick and easy. The third and final Gauntlet of Avarice, for this run anyway, is the hardest, but assuming you remember how to fight Smo, you shouldn't have much issue, having come this far. After a few more puzzles, you've made it to Hell itself, the Watchtowers. The Watchtowers are crawling with grunts, ghouls, brutes, mages, dodgers, and boomers. While the entire area is difficult, much harder than most of the game prior, the final gauntlet really is something else. The arena itself is ice with 2 raised solid portions, and 1 raised solid portion of ice. A ton of grunts are in this gauntlet, as well as a few mages, plants, archers, and worst of all, brutes. The final wave in particular is 2 archers and 3 brutes, and it may be the hardest part of the entire run, arguably only outclassed by Betty or the Lord of Doors himself. The ice in the arena that you can use to recharge your mana can only recover so much, so try to recover off of enemies as much as possible and save it for the last round. Don't worry too much about using the ice, just be cautious of the fact that it can permanently break, not break. You'd think I'd be good at reading scripts by now. The brutes have a hard time going upstairs for whatever reason too, so use that to your advantage. Finally, you've made it to what I consider to be the climax of the run. 3 boss fights back to back. The first of the 3 is Betty, and the second time in the entire run where you can't avoid damage, to my knowledge. For most of the time during this fight, you're going to want to stick to her back, pretty similar to Smo actually. Every time she raises a hand to do a quick smack, go to the opposite side on her back, and you should avoid it no problem. But then there's one problem, she can break the rules. Betty can roll, and it's the only attack in the whole game that you can't walk to dodge. You might be able to with extremely high haste, but those upgrades are better spent on strength. The first roll in her string of the 3 cannot be dodged, at least I couldn't no matter how hard I tried. It might be possible, but I couldn't do it. The second and third can be dodged though, with a dagger dash. I sure hope you've been practicing, because you're going to need it. After the 3 rolls, it's back to staying behind her and hoping you can kill her before she rolls again. After a while, she'll throw snowballs and even rampage, during which you can easily hit her. Once you pass this, the second worst of the run is over. The previous gauntlet was only the 3rd. Don't you worry, it gets worse.
Come on! Does that count? Does that count? Please tell me that counts.
The second of the 3 bosses, the Grey Crow. The Big Crow is more of a respite than anything else. The fight is quite long, but it's not too difficult. All of the attacks can be easily avoided by moving perpendicularly to him. During charges, you can get up close as long as you're to the side and easily hit him a few times. Every time you hit him, a little crow thing spawns, and you can hit it back at him. Use as powerful as an attack as time will allow to reflect these back at him. When he spawns a ton of little crows around you, make sure to get rid of them ASAP with melee swings, something other than the dagger for the range. These will block magic attacks and reflected projectiles. Also make sure to shoot an arrow at the black hole as he spits it out. They explode when they're attacked, but you can't get away from them, only closer since you can't roll. Also make sure to get out of the way of the chains, but that doesn't need to be said. Finally, the most annoying part of the entire run, the Lord of Doors himself. All of the charging doors can be avoided, that's not the issue. What is the 3 fights prior to the actual final boss fight. After the first Gauntlet of Doors is the first bout with the Lord. It's easy enough to circle him to avoid his hits, so this part isn't too bad. Just make sure to watch out for his swipes. Next time you meet him, he'll be able to summon jars that are thrown at you. These aren't too bad to dodge, but they are quite annoying. He's also able to jump and shoot 3 waves at you, so just stand where the waves emanated from and repeat 3 times. The 3rd time is the hard part. Now we can roll just like Betty, and it's after such a long gauntlet. The same strategy as Betty applies here, so good luck, and I hope you know how to dagger dash. Finally, the final boss. This is it, and it's hard. Most of the attacks are ones you've already faced, but there are a couple differences. For instance, the jumping waves are now accompanied by 3 jars. The rolling is much easier to avoid too, given the arena size. The main new move is the laser. It's frustrating since you can't hit him during it, and it's hard to figure out how to dodge. At first, I just tried to run in circles while avoiding the doors, but the doors are way too fast. The best way to consistently avoid the laser is to go into the bottom right corner and do small circles. You'll never get hit. He has a ton of health, but if you just persevere, you'll have the minimum roll run of Death's Door in the bag. So that's it, huh? One roll on the counter, and the game's over. Just that one forced roll that serves as a tutorial. Well, turns out, I lied to your face. Well, not really. I thought it was impossible while writing that line, but while writing, I thought I'd consult some speedrunners. There's a skip that you can do to get past him without attacking, but it requires the daggers, and it might only be possible on 1.0. There is, however, another way over the coffin. Bat skip. Simply lure a bat to the coffin and have it hit you. You'll go up just enough to get over the coffin. If you do it on the other side of the area, you can entirely skip the guardian of the door. So with that, a true no-roll run is entirely possible. Let's do this.
So, the video that this is coming after, I'm going to be putting this in the video. I'm going to be doing a slightly different route than I explained in the video, mainly because I'm using a bunch of glitches that let me beat the game faster. But other than that, you can still beat the game with the route that I show in the video. Basically, instead of going to Stadhone and getting over the coffin next to him with that skip, I'm going to be using a bat to get over that gate here. Okay, this is the one. I'm gonna win this time. I've been actually messing around this entire time. This is super easy. I've just been making it interesting to watch. See? I'm gonna do it without getting hit this time. I'm sick. Well, that dream's gone. Oh well. I'm dead. I'm not dead, I mean, I thought I was gonna get hit, but I didn't, because I'm good at the video game. Sometimes. Okay. Almost done. What? I forgot he had that. I completely forgot that was an attack that he had. Me out? Okay. Come on. This is it. That's not it. Okay. This is it. This is the one. I can taste it. I didn't realize how much damage. I went the wrong way completely. I've been getting hit by that way too much because I'm dumb. Come on. This is where he dies. This is not where he dies. But this is right here, right here. Watch. Just bam. Yes! The first ever true complete game, no roll run, to my knowledge, of Death's Door in the world. Finally. I should have done this like a month and a half ago, but I kept screwing up runs because of the mapping. I'm so glad they changed it.
And that is it, the entirety of Death's Door beaten without rolling. This was an adventure and a half. Thank you for joining me through the recap of the entire adventure. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. I love you all, and I don't know how to end this.